Hello. The subject we're going to have for Positive Vibes Enterprise today will be on emotions. And the thing about the spiritual is powered by emotions and passion. So it's the people that feel a lot and voice the feelings with intensity in a positive way that are going to make good things happen spiritually in this world. If you don't have strong feelings, you can't make a lot happen spiritually.
And the emotions also go into control. You can have a lot of emotions of anger as long as you can balance the control of why that anger is coming in. It can be very intense at the moment that you're getting the emotions. However, clarity intuitively while you're going through the emotions can give you control when you have the awareness of what's going on with those emotions.
The thing about control is that you want to make sure you can direct the emotions in a constructive, positive direction. And if the emotions overwhelm you, they can have a tendency to lash out, be used destructively, and tend to be vindictive or destructive or tearing down other people, which is not what you want.
And it also tears you down emotionally as well. You get really angry, you get really frustrated, you really want something to happen, and you want that intensity to come out where you want that motivation to move forward, and you're just getting all filled with that intensity of that emotion, whatever it may be.
And reality sometimes does not cooperate in the way you would like it to do. That you a lot of times have expectations that reality does not fulfill for you. That reality is not going to do what you expect it to do, and that can be very frustrating. And that's how one can get into trouble with not where you lash out and you won't be able to put the emotion in a positive direction because you get mad at reality, you get upset with reality.
And honestly, when you look at emotions and you're out of control with emotions, if you stop and go into the moment, you can get the clarity to get the solutions for the problems that are going on that is making the emotions go out of control.
And a lot of times people think of anger as a negative emotion because a lot of times it is represented in violence or destructive behavior. But anger is also what has created all kinds of great causes to make positive things happen in this world. People that have loved ones or have been victimized themselves, they will use that anger to try to change the laws or to change the situation that caused the problem, that caused the victimization that resulted. So a lot of positive things do happen as a result of anger because anger should be saying something like, this is not right. We got to do something about this. We got to remedy this problem. I am mad at this situation and I'm going to do something about it. I'm not going to put up with this. It's all right to be angry at the right things because if you're not angry at some of the bad things that happen in the world, there's something that's not right with you. You're not connected. You're disconnected, and a lot of spiritual people become disconnected. They think they're spiritual, but they don't pick up on the anger. And there are people that are angry in this world all over the place, and they're angry for good reason. And they may not be angry. They may have the anger out of control, but they're still angry because of a reason. And you have to be able to relate to these people. You can't shut them off and say, oh, this person's all, bad. We don't deal with anger, so we don't deal with these people because anger is always negative and these people are always negative. What you do is you show empathy towards the person and you relate to the anger, and then you try to explain to them how they may be able to direct that anger towards something constructive or something positive that will do something good in this world. So you have to try to redirect the anger. So if somebody comes at you with all this anger, don't get caught up in the destructiveness or the negativity of it. Try to see the positive and try to steer the person to the positive, and then you can disarm the person because the person's not going to attack you if they see you as being an ally to help them deal in a positive way with what they have to cope with. And so what you have to think about with any emotion is that the emotion, all emotions, the whole spectrum of emotions are all there for a good reason. They exist for a purpose. And you cannot just label anger and fear and certain emotions, anxiety, as negative, because you have to also understand you can turn them to be positive, and they can do great things when directed in a positive way. Like if I'm coming on this website, and before I come in, I have all this anxiety. Oh no, I'm going to be in public and all that stuff. Well, what I need to do is that anxiety will get me ready, prepared to deal with the intensity of what I'm going to have to deal with. So I take my deep breaths, I do my meditation, I focus on it, and it's like getting up for a game or getting up for a performance. And then when I get comfortable with the anxiety, I can come on really comfortable and really pumped up and ready, and the stage fright is gone.
You can also relate this to people in school and dealing with tests and dealing with different knowledge that you're learning. That anxiety gives you the motivation to learn it. So it's a positive anxiety that's going to motivate you to make that change, to learn that subject, to get those answers and knowledge that you're looking for.
So that has to do with preparation. So if you're anxious about something, it's good to always change emotions into some kind of constructive action. So you say, I'm anxious. Well, what are you going to do about it? You should, what are you anxious about? Go in the direction of what you're anxious and study and work on that, because that's probably an area you're weak in, that you're going to get in trouble in. And even if it isn't, at least you'll do better at it. Even with misguided anxiety, at least it will help you to even excel even more.
And don't doubt yourself. And it's okay to feel those emotions. It's okay to have those feelings, because that is just motivating you and waking up that strength that is sleeping inside of you to get you pumped and ready to face whatever the situation or goal is that you have.
And a lot of times people see fear as being only negative or whatever. But the thing is, how do you stay safe in this world? You have to fear certain things to stay safe in this world. When you're walking down that's the intuition that you have to keep you safe only works if you're comfortable with the emotions related to the intuition. So you have to be able to be comfortable with fear, so when you're walking down the street, you'll sense fear and you'll be able to respond and stay clear of certain areas
and
survive. And it's fear that keeps the atomic power plants working well, because the people that are working in there have fear that a big accident will happen if they don't do things right. So there's a lot of jobs in which fear makes them vigilant enough that big disasters don't happen. And then fear can be, I'm afraid I'm going to miss an opportunity, or I'm afraid I can't take advantage of something wonderful if I'm not ready for it. So fear can be a thing that can actually motivate you. I'm afraid I'm not going to do well enough on this test, so I'm going to work at it harder. The fear is motivating me to study more. Yeah, so you have to think of fear as being a valuable thing, a valuable survival aid, but it has to be rational, reasonable fear.
And that's what I talk about a lot in the rooted chakra of survival. Survival has fight or flight, which is the stress and the negative part, but it also has thriving as well. And that's what we're talking about, the healthy part of that emotion. Because if you do not go into the fight or flight and get stressed, you can go into the thriving part of survival and look at the consequences of what you're feeling, what that's coming in, what is it telling you to stay clear of, to hone you in on that thriving survival.
And when I tend to exercise really intensely, I'm very afraid of hurting myself or injuring myself. So I am very vigilant, and I really tune into my body really intensely. And that's what the fear does. It makes me be careful, and that way I can do things that are really, really intense and get away with it because I am paying attention to the dangers involved while I'm doing it's sort of like climbing Mount Everest or whatever. You are aware of the dangers, you fear the dangers, and that's how you are able to avoid the dangers and able to safely get up to the top of the mountain. So that's why fear can be very positive. Of course, it can be disabling and everything else when it's irrational fear. It can shut you down. It can stop you from doing what you need to do. And so you have to think of fear as a challenge to take on and to overcome. You can't be afraid of fear. Fear is a bad thing because then you can't really do what you need to do in life if you're afraid of dealing with anything that has fear involved, because almost everything you do is going to have some fear involved in it.
Yes, fear of the unknown. The unknown is very something that people are very afraid of. However, the unknown brings those blessings, brings those changes, brings things that you would have never imagined happening in your life. And so dive into the unknown and be okay with the emotion that it's exciting, it's fearful, but it's thriving you into something positive.
And then we haven't mentioned love, but I like to leave that to the last because it's an emotion that a lot of time people just always see it as positive. But
love is the greatest gift. 'Tis true. However, when it does not have logic in the love, it is just a chaotic emotion.
And love, understanding is what logic brings. You are able to connect the love with reality. So when you're connecting with the person, it isn't some kind of crazy fantasy or some drug-induced, illusion that you got. It's you actually know the person, you relate to the person, you can relate to the struggles that person goes through, what they're striving to do in this world, what they're striving to contribute, what they have a value to offer to this world. So you get into understanding the person on a real deep level, and on a real deep level, it has to do with what is the meaning of your life and what are you trying to do on this world. That's what it comes down to when you're on a real deep level. But so many times love gets sent away from reality. People go on drugs, and drugs are like fantasy lands when you're in there, so you're definitely not connecting with reality.
Perception of love and connection.
In the fantasy, of course, you're going to get disconnected when you're in a fantasy. And what you love in a fantasy is not real, and you can have a relationship with both are in love with fantasies because they don't really understand them. Actually, they have a sort of like a fantasy connection with themselves. They don't see themselves for who they really are. There's a certain deception in it. So they're sort of like their fantasy, and they're married or connected to a fantasy, and that's where you have these they become sort of like addictive type relationship because fantasies have that addictive quality to them because you hold on to them because you're afraid of letting go and having to connect with the reality, which can be truth can be pretty painful or hard. So when you disconnect from, it's sort of like if you get off drugs, which is something that you connect you with fantasy and can put a lot of your love energy can go into drugs, then it's hard to get off the drugs, and it's painful to get off the drugs, and the truth you have to deal with is hard and rough. But it's facing that truth and facing that reality is what makes love go positive. It makes you see the value, the real value in things, the real value in what you're doing, the real value in the feelings you have, not having feelings that you just have drug-induced and they have no connection with reality. You have feelings that are connected to real situations and real results.
And also be aware of a creature of habit type of emotion based. You want to be able to change your emotions and spontaneously go with life no matter what it brings you. So if you get into that creature of habit, creature of getting used to, or the drug induced feeling of the emotions that you're going through, attachments, try to let go of those things. That will also help you be aware of the control of emotions.
But you can't just say all the world needs is more love and just say it on that simplistic level. You have to understand that love takes a lot of work in order to develop it in a direction where you have the level of understanding that you can do real constructive things with it.
But you need to love yourself first, because in doing that, you dedicate yourself to understanding where the reality based is of that love, where it comes from, that it's healthy.
And loving yourself has to do with trying to get the best out of yourself.
Yes.
And I think that pretty well sums up our thing on emotion.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Yes, Happy New Year.